Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the last monthly address of the year. June is, you know, pretty much a third of the way done. I mean, it's June 7th recording this, and next Friday will be, last day of student classes, and teachers will be out here pretty soon. So, this monthly address is going to be a bit different. For those of you who don't know, this is my final year at Christ the King. So this will be more of a farewell message than advice and what to do for June. I mean, obviously, study for your finals, make sure you're prepared. But to talk about leaving, well, I was often telling students because they'd ask, well, Mr. Khawaja, why are you leaving? And I would say that, nothing I say will suffice as an answer. Obviously, many students felt very heartbroken. I think it's fair to say, or very sad that I was leaving, which is very touching. But, from the adult perspective, I mean, and from a professional point of view, just to be very professional about the reasons why I'm leaving. Not that there is anything bad going on, but one of the students I teach kind of said it best, that I'm just simply moving on to try something new. And I would say that that's a very accurate way of summing it up, and an explanation that people would accept and makes sense and is true. So I'll be leaving Christ the King and Star Catholic, and I have fortunately been accepted by Edmonton Public. And in terms of the future, I don't know exactly what school I'll be working with. Hopefully I find that out by the end of June, at the latest end of August. Hopefully I am working next year. I would love to be working next year, but my plans for the future really pertain around just focusing on being at a grades 10 through 12 high school. It is something, junior high is not what I wanted to teach at all. Now, my time at Christ the King, some reflections, for sure, I've come to really enjoy grade nines. I mean, they bring in a different type of energy. And over my, 3 full years teaching here, each group of grade nines has been very different from the last. And they always present different challenges and keep you on your toes. But in terms of the actual curriculum content, I really just prefer teaching the high school courses. So my plans for the future, a little bit of reflection there, that I'm looking forward to just being at a pure high school and just teaching high school courses and working in a larger school with a larger social studies program and collaborating with more colleagues and whatnot. So I'm really excited for that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the future later on in this video. Just some reflections from my time at Christ the King. Well, there's a lot of lessons learned. So Star Catholic was one of the first school districts I got hired to right out of university. I graduated from the University of Alberta in 2019. Didn't get a lot of work in 2019, and then finally in 2020 I got some. So in 2020, I ended up applying to and got hired by Star Catholic. I spent 80 days subbing down in Wetaskiwin, so I drive from Edmonton to Wetaskiwin, which was looking back at it, it's just crazy. 2 hours of driving every day. I mean, there were so many days where I was just like literally my eyes were closing as I was driving home. Just don't have a really good sleep schedule. And then sometime in 2021, March 2021, I received employment at Christ the King. And I came here after a tragedy had occurred. And so it was a very unique experience coming into a school where there was a full team of psychologists and trauma response. And the teacher who I came here to replace was the teacher in where the incident happened. She was the one in the room, that teacher, and I ended up getting to work with that group of kids. And it was really unique experience where some kids were in the room when the tragedy occurred and some were not, and some were friends with the individual and some were not, and just seeing how the staff as well had to respond as well, like hearing stories from staff members later on of what they were doing that day or what they experienced as well. So coming into the school after a tragedy was very unique, very different, but it helped to, make me a little bit more resilient, I would say. And it, ended up being quite handy that I was there. Many of the students really appreciated it. I heard from a number of staff members that many students said like, hey, this guy was the right choice. He's doing a good job. So I was very grateful to hear that. And kind of learning that flexibility of recognizing that, yeah, there's things to teach, but, there's more important things to life than just what we teach in high school, which if you've been in my class is hopefully something that's pretty obvious. Some other reflections. So teaching a variety of courses. I mean, I'm primarily a social studies teacher. I wish I had gotten a chance to teach phys ed as well. That would have been nice. That's my minor from my Bachelor of Education. But I got to teach math, which was a complete curveball and was, really interesting, really fascinating. It was a -3 course. So, I could actually do the math. I got to teach some psychology. I got to teach some Aboriginal studies. I got to teach some LA to some grade 9s and teach some literacy. So, at some point I kind of felt like, Thanos collecting all the different subjects in the school system. So only got science and phys ed left there. And what I really like about that is it gave me a perspective of the different courses and the different subjects and how they play a role in, what we're learning and kind of understanding that better rather than just the day-to-day, like, you got to learn about trigonometry, you got to read some Shakespeare, you got to learn about nationalism, you got to do your science, but just seeing how these things actually play together. For students, I imagine it takes a certain amount of time after you graduate to look back and go, oh, that's why we were learning this thing, or, that kind of makes sense. And quite frankly, if I didn't become a teacher, I probably wouldn't have done that reflection. I probably would have just left high school and gone, well, had a good time, made some friends. As the time moved on, no longer friends with them, that's okay, but would not have thought much about my experience in high school and, what we were doing. But as a teacher, as a career, knowing how these different subjects play a role in the development and the, education learning process was quite nice. Some more things to reflect on: learning how to teach. In university, they don't really do much to teach you how to teach. Your first 2 years are spent, building knowledge, and your last 2 years, one of them is spent doing your student teaching, and then you do a lot of like your more advanced education courses, which look at ethics, law, practice, curriculum, all that kind of stuff. But there's a difference between being good at something and being able to teach that same skill, which is something I learned very quick the first quarter that I was hired for. I had a group of grade 12s in front of me and I had to teach them how to write an essay. And I quickly realized okay, I know how to write an essay, but I don't know how to teach someone how to write an essay. And, 3.5 years later, I'm still working on that craft. Even today, I was making a document for, how to teach critical thinking. How do students elevate their writing marks? So learning how to teach is one of those kind of lifelong things, I think. And you start obviously at the start of your career, and you keep working on it and keep perfecting it. But that was a complete curveball to me. Stepping into the classroom and it's essay time, and it's like, all right, kids, write an essay, and they go, we don't know how. And then I say, I don't know how to teach you. That's actually a good question. Let's figure this out together. So learning how to teach was an interesting kind of development, in my journey here at Christ the King. Building relationships, that was very important. One thing that was so clear as soon as I started teaching was that even in the 10 years since I graduated in 2014, it's 2024 now. Even in the 10 years since I've been in public education and high school, things have changed so much. And just this, the idea that students will just come in and naturally kind of give a certain amount of respect to their teacher, a certain amount of respect and dignity is unfortunately, it's just not the reality anymore. And they emphasize this a lot in university, but obviously, like I mentioned before, they didn't exactly teach us how to do these things, but they emphasize and things that I learned on my own as well. Just building relationships with students, like the utility of that and the joy that it brings to actually get to know people, to have them share parts of themselves with you, like tell you what their future plans are, tell you things about their life, what's going on, and what they're interested in, and hear from myself as well, and to watch them grow and develop has just been it's been very rewarding. It's one of the most enjoyable aspects of my job. Tied into that, is like the coaching and volunteering. So, I've coached some basketball. I volunteered with basketball. I did some other volunteer work as well. Particularly, one thing that I really enjoy and am proud of is, the fitness center and the fitness club. And although, attendance has always been very kind of finicky at this school, given, 80% of people who, 80% of, students at the school, maybe 95% really, they, take a school bus. And so getting kids to stay after school is very tough. But like last year and the year before with some grade 10s and 11s, I mean, the kids who did start coming up, they're regularly building that relationship with them, but just watching them, and in this case, literally grow, because some of these kids were, they're just whatever, right? They're just tall, lanky, skinny kids or whatever. And then to see that a year or 2 years later, it's like, oh my God, they're squatting upwards of 300 pounds, deadlifting upwards of 300 pounds, their bench presses around 200 pounds. Like, wow, these kids are strong now, right? To see that and to know that, potentially that lifelong habit, that useful skill began because I, helped out volunteering and I helped to establish that positive relationship. It's, if I think about it more, it is very meaningful, and it's one of the positives of my time here at CTK and my time so far with teaching. So those are just some of the reflections on my time here, and some of the highlights. Now this is there's a lot to pick from here, and I didn't get all of it, but there's so many to choose from. I mean, grad pranks, like 2 grad classes that I got to see. Well, I got to see 4 in total. The first one I didn't know very well because I came partway through the year, and the grade 12s I taught, they just didn't get to know me as well because I started teaching them in March. But of the 4 grad classes that, I participated with, 2 of them pranked me. Both of them got me very good in their own unique way. Some of you might recognize there's like a photo of me by my wall eating a hot dog, and out by Miss Curry's room at the Sky Dome, there's like another photo of me, 0.5 of my forehead. A couple of years ago, the grad class, they got these little photos of me in compromising positions, and as part of their grad prank, which felt very personal, like the one this year too, they photocopied a whole bunch of the photos and they plastered them all over the school for whatever reason. They wanted to prank me specifically. So the grad pranks were really good. The one this year was funny. They set up a bunch of my desks in the hallway, and a couple in the classroom were in a nice circle, and my throne was in the front with my tiara, which is, somewhere back here, if I can point to it correctly, right there. So those were funny pranks. Grad retreats were a blast. I got to go on 2 of them. Last one in last year and the year before that. They were just total blast. So much fun to hang out with the kids, spend 2 days there and do all the activities. The school dance where, I got this tiara from, right? So a lot of people might not know the reason why I have a tiara in my room is because, they voted prom king and queen from the teachers who volunteered. And so I got prom queen. And second part to that story that I haven't shared before, the students who tallied everything up and ran the dance, they told me that, hey, you actually won prom king and prom queen, but we thought you'd be a good sport if we named you prom queen. And so that was kind of funny. Mr. Kenny was the prom king. So if or he was voted prom king, I guess, with the story that I just told. If you've gone to his classroom and seen, he's got a tiara and a scepter as well. And so that was a highlight for sure. Grad banquets. I've gone to 3 of the ones that I've been here for the full year. And the first one and the one this year were an absolute blast. Lots of kids came out and danced and had a good time, and it was really good. The DJing was great this year and last year, and the grad banquets and the dances were really good. I got to MC at 2 of them, so that was quite the honor. Many students know that in my classroom there is a beautiful red throne with hearts all over it. Stealing that throne from Miss Curry in the middle of a class block with a bunch of grade nines was definitely a highlight where, you know, people were just seeing us in the hallway with this like 10-foot long throne, and there's like four people pulling it, and kids are asking like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Hey, mind your own business. Don't worry about it." So that was definitely fun. I'm sure there's some kid has photos of us doing that and moving that over. The school plays. CTK puts on a production every year. I've gone to all three of them, I believe now, and honestly, they're such a blast. They're so cool, and particularly the first one I went to, the performance was really well done. There were some great actors in it, and I went after school, kind of on my own time, and watched with some other staff members, and got to chat with the students afterwards. And you know, all three of them really good, but the first one really stuck out as just kind of a unique experience. Some other highlights: starting this YouTube channel. You know, some of the role models that I have and people that I look up to, who are teachers, professors, you know, they release a lot of what they do, a lot of what they teach onto YouTube. And so for me to get this YouTube channel started, I had it for probably almost a year, wasn't really doing anything with it. And then to start recording my classes, and now like, you know, I have multiple sets of classes that I've taught, and everything's recorded, and students, you know, they don't even need to be in my room. You know, so for all of you clowns out there saying, you know, Mr. K, you're always in the hallway, buddy, all my class stuff is online. You know, you can watch it yourself. You don't even need to be in my classroom. Okay, I don't need to be in my classroom. I can just put the video up. So that's definitely been a highlight of my journey here through CTK, and I'm really grateful for, you know, just my fellow colleagues and admin being okay with, you know, that's happening. And, you know, even though it's maybe not something that they would do, or something that's kind of maybe weird to them, that like, hey, cool, Najib has his classes recorded. That's wonderful. So if there's a sub in the room, if somebody needs to cover, like, you know, they can just go to the specific section and then like put this video on, and, you know, you have a social studies teacher teaching the same material that the kids need to be learning. So that has been wonderful. Another highlight with the YouTube channel was getting like almost 100 followers. I think it was not this year, not last year, the year before. Okay, so that would have been I think the 2022 school year, probably. You know, particularly a student named Raziel, he went out with a couple other guys. I think it was Tino, and there was another one, Patrick. I think the three of them went around and they kind of forcibly got a bunch of people to subscribe. And you know, that's still on my kind of my history of subscribers. I can see this one particular day. And actually, it was a birthday gift. June 23rd is my birthday. So they found out, they went around, they got me almost 100 subscribers that day. And I'm very grateful for that. And, you know, to see that I have 306 subscribers and thousands of views, and, you know, all that materials out there is definitely a highlight of my time here at Christ the King. Doing the podcast as well, I've really enjoyed that. I kind of started with Mr. Murphy. I got to interview Miss Rantucci as well, Mr. Newsom, and, you know, some friends, and you know, expanding that out, and kind of doing all these podcasts is very interesting because it's definitely something that piques my interest. I love learning more about people and kind of learning how they do things and why they do things and what they're up to. So, you know, that whole journey with the YouTube channel has been very rewarding, has been, you know, very meaningful, and brought a lot of value, I would say, to kind of what I bring to my classroom, which obviously, you know, when you're a kid, you don't realize that, but, you know, it's definitely an asset. Like when you look at it from an adult perspective, that like, okay, look, this person's doing something different. So, rewarding internally and hopefully externally as I move forward. Okay. Another highlight would be, you know, I had a sneaky potluck in during kind of some of the COVID times where there was, you know, all this distancing, mask stuff, and maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but for my grade 10 class, globalization, we were looking at kind of indigenous practices, and the potluck is a type of ceremony in indigenous communities. And I thought, hey kids, like, you know what? Everybody bring something, you know, we'll do it real low key, casual. You know, bring something, or you can make something and give it to people, following the indigenous spirit of potluck. And you know, completely went over my head that I being the teacher and the responsible adult, it was my job to bring the plates and cutleries and napkins and everything needed to hold the food. So what ended up happening was everyone it just ate on towel papers using their hands. So it's kind of a gong show in that regard. So for anyone who's ever gotten like some cutlery from me or plates or napkins, ever asked like, hey, how come you have all this stuff here? Well, it's because after that potluck, I decided like, hey, it'd be pretty useful to have this material in my class regardless, right? Regardless of what I'm doing. So that was a fun little adventure that we went on together with the grade 10 class from that year. Some other highlights is, all of the artwork that I received. So, if you come to my classroom, you'll see these kind of posters. You'll see like, more professional ones, but then you'll see like all types of weird stuff. So, I mean, we got Edward the Frog over there. We got Buff Togepi, Kawaii Shrek, which is a bit of a monstrosity the closer you look at it. And the same student who drew me who drew Kawaii Shrek, which I kept. She also drew, if you ever come by my desk, you'll see this wolf, two ravens pulling on a heart. Students have given me artwork all like over the last couple of years, which I've just, taken. So you can even see there's this like plant pot that's been painted here. You can see the banana back there, the clay banana. I got some, we got, what are these candles, some scented candles, and kids love coming there to smell them. I got a really cool project back here that a student gave me last year, and some more grade 11s gave me similar projects here as well that, maybe I'll keep, maybe I won't. I got like some clay, some grade 10s some grade 9s last year, like they made their faces out of clay and came and handed them to me. And there's some little chickens there. I got, this little fruit. Unfortunately, this thing, the green part ripped off, and just the other day actually it got lost, unfortunately. But this was made by a rather difficult student who, was very challenging to be around. And I initially kept it. I just thought it was a heart with some designs on it, and we called it Tough Love. And I found out later that it's actually from the show One Piece. It's a particular fruit that a character eats. I have this bird of peace here. I used to have another one as well, and this was some origami made by a student like several years ago. I have all this artwork that I'm very grateful to have received and, to carry with me as I move forward on my journey. But that has definitely been a highlight to receive that from students, regardless of talent and skill level. I'll add, I have all this other stuff here that students have given me over the years. So that has been a highlight. What else is going on here? So for anyone who watched a senior boys basketball game this season, it was rough, but I'll have you know, we this year got the only win that the senior boys basketball program has had since 2022. So, that was definitely a highlight. It was a rough season. It was tough learning how to, coach and kind of what kind of coach I wanted to be. But that was definitely a highlight. I remember the relief I felt when we beat Old Skona and kind of determined that no, we are in fact not the worst team in the roster. So that was pretty good. And I guess, the last highlight is, the friends we made along the way. Okay, that's always a highlight. All the people I've gotten to know, which I'm grateful to have gotten to know, and hopefully they're happy to have gotten to know me as well and to be a part of each other's lives. That has been wonderful. Okay. To conclude, some hope for the future. Well, I would really love to continue teaching, and I do plan on teaching next year. I really want to see how things work out at, an Edmonton public school, maybe a larger high school, just to see how things are, see how things are different. And if things go well, then I'll stay as a teacher for as long as I can. But I'm seriously considering a career switch, which some of you might know. You might have seen my teacher introduction PowerPoint. Some of you wouldn't, but psychology is something I've always wanted to do. And in fact, partway through my Bachelor of Education, I almost dropped the program and switched over to a psych program, but was convinced otherwise by my mother. And, it was a good decision because, I got all these experiences and got a full degree and, didn't have a whole bunch of extra debt. But just some of the challenges and some of the issues I've seen kind of even in my short 3.5 years leads me to believe that, maybe long term this profession isn't for me, and there are just some obstacles that conflict too much with who I am as a person that I wouldn't really want to have to keep dealing with. So, my hope for the future is, I would love to remain a teacher because I do love teaching. It's great being around kids, helping to help them develop and to have a positive impact on them is really joyous and rewarding. And if that doesn't work, then, potentially looking into going back into school and, maybe becoming a counselor and doing, a private practice on the side, or part-time teaching, part-time counseling. Like, that would be really cool. But, in between, maybe switching professions and just being out of the education system for a bit. Hopefully I still have a lot of cards left to play in my deck. I'm not too old, all right, much to the maybe to the disagreement of some of you who've seen me with my head shaved. I still got a lot of time left. The sun is still rising in my life. So, we'll see how things go. As for the future of these addresses, I think over the summer, my plan would be to, share things that I've learned and to continually upload videos just about things I'm learning and to keep that contact, but feel free to, like, comment, and subscribe. You can even find me on social media. Obviously, I won't accept your requests until, you've graduated or some years have passed, but, there's a bunch of people in there waiting who are graduating this year who will finally, make the transition, make that crossover into the follow list. But there are many ways to get a hold of me. So, if you're still at CDK next year and I'm subbing, hopefully I see you then. But, we'll keep in touch. Okay. Peace out.